From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
With nearly a 4-point margin of victory, Seth Magaziner outperformed the expectations of many, while in the governor's race, McKee walloped his Republican opponent. This week on Newsmakers, we peel back the curtain on the winning campaigns, how they did it, and what it was like in the weeks leading up to Election Day. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, alongside 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi. Joining us this week, Nee Zambrano. She's the campaign manager for the Seth Magaziner campaign, and Bob Walsh, who's a Democratic strategist, also helped out the Governor McKee campaign. Katie, we're going to start with you. Congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you very much.
Look, most thought the race was going to be, was a toss-up, really, and it was going to be tight either way. Your own internal polls weeks before had Fung up by a few points. What were you anticipating the morning of Election Day, and did you think you were going to win by nearly 4 points?
I was pretty sure that morning that we were going to win. We were never up in any poll.
That's going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, well, we never were up in any poll, even our own poll.
Right.
Even a little bit closer to Election Day, we weren't up, but we were closing. And we felt like we had a message that was really resonating with voters, and we felt like we knew that the mail ballot applications that had been drawn really favored Democrats, and we knew Democrats were really getting excited and starting to realize that there was a lot at stake here, and the race was really close and they had to turn out. And so I think both knowing we had the right message and knowing we were executing on the ground, I felt really good going into Election Day.
You got a lot of criticism, though, for the message. I mean, the campaign leaned a lot into abortion rights post-Dobbs, and there was a lot of people wondering if that was really the right message to go with, right?
I think that the campaign was never about just one thing, right? It was always about fighting for working people, fighting for everyday Rhode Islanders, and part of that messaging was that people, particularly women, were very concerned when the Dobbs decision came down, and very concerned not only about rolling back abortion rights, but rolling back rights for Americans, rolling back women's rights. And so it was more than just abortion rights, but abortion rights were really important to people. Equally important was the fact that they saw Seth Magaziner as someone who was fighting for working people, on the side of hardworking people who are struggling with the rising price of gas, who are concerned about Social Security and Medicare, concerned about lowering the cost of prescription drugs. And so I think that our messaging was both of those things. It wasn't an either or.
So, Bob, I want to ask you about, you've done a lot of Democratic campaigns, which is part of why I had you on. And as Tim said, you were in the kitchen cabinet helping Governor McKee to his big victory here. You were pretty confident, I would say, throughout the campaign when I would talk to you. I felt pretty good about Magaziner's chances in the tightest of the races, and certainly felt good about the governor. What made you confident, as someone who's watched campaigns for a long time, that there was going to be this big red wave washing ashore even in Rhode Island? Because I think most people always saw the governor as a favorite, but thought it would be much closer, though.
Yeah, I think that 42 years of doing campaigns, you eventually get in the habit of sitting down, putting all the numbers on paper, and story arc. There is a base Democratic vote that, unless you really mess up, every Democrat in this running statewide or in a congressional district gets to avail themselves to, and there's a base Republican vote. In the excellent, congratulations, Katie, superb race, superb candidate, great victory, almost to the number that I predicted a month ago that you would do, because Alan Fung had a peak. He had a cap, which was better than the normal Republican cap because he had run twice before. In the case of the 2nd District race, when I sat down and ran those numbers, I looked at Alan Fung's performance against Gina Raimondo in the prior races. I looked at the 21 cities and towns in that district, and I saw where all the opportunities were, and I knew that there would be a phenomenal ground game from labor, from women, from progressives, from everybody in the Democratic Party who wanted to make sure we kept that seat, and we weren't the reason that Congress went the wrong way nationally. And all the messaging was exactly as the messaging should have been, and I helped as best I could defend the Magaziner campaign from the folks who said, oh, they should be doing this instead. No, they have a plan and they're sticking to the plan. Go up and yell at Belichick about his strategy here. We've done this before and we know what we're supposed to do. If we lose, yell at us after.
All right, but wait, hang on. So, but you're taking credit. I predicted. That's great.
Oh, I'm wrong a lot.
Yeah. It's nice. It's easy to say 2 weeks after you're elected. But how about in the governor's race? Yeah, okay.
I wrote it down though.
That's evidence. Did you predict?
Oh, yeah, you were better before you were a lawyer.
I am not. Did you predict 20 points for McKee?
I knew that Dan McKee would run better than Seth overall. I knew that he would run behind David Cicilline overall. I did not think we would get every potential available vote because you always run a conservative model, right? You run, and there's a lot of variables there. You know, we were looking. Best case scenario, and Joe Fleming, who's going to be on the second segment of the show, gave us a very wide range on this show of a statewide turnout between 340 and 400,000 votes, because there was a lot of uncertainty there. But when you put these things together, you run a model. So I ran a 360,000 vote model to be conservative, knowing that more votes that turn out above that accrue to the Democrats. Dan McKee could have gotten 60% of the vote had we gotten the bigger turnout, mostly in Providence, Pawtucket, Blackstone Valley, but there weren't a lot of motivating down ballot races to turn people out. One person said to me more than semi-seriously, we got to make sure there's always an independent running against the Democrat for mayor in Providence so we get that extra 10,000 votes. 75 to 80% of which always accrue to the Democrat, just the demographics of that city.
Katie, just as we're talking about towns, I was a little surprised how Alan Fung underperformed in Cranston. What do you attribute to that?
You know, what I attribute that to is that people understood the high stakes in this race, that this was a federal race where they were very concerned about the Republican Party in Washington. And, you know, over the course of the campaign even, they took extreme positions on things like privatizing Social Security and Medicare, of course on abortion rights. And so I think that people saw, you know, I might have liked Alan Fung as mayor. I might have thought he did a good job. But the stakes are really, really high, and I'm concerned about empowering Republicans in Washington. I'm concerned about Kevin McCarthy being speaker. And so ultimately, those people might have still gone in on election day liking Alan Fung and voting against him.
We're talking, so, you know, everyone looks, you know, brilliant, and it was always going to end this way when the campaign's over. But, you know, there were certainly, I thought, moments where Democrats did get pretty nervous about the 2nd district race, especially as the fall polling came out and it hadn't moved. Fung hadn't gained votes, but Seth Magaziner hadn't really either. Was there a moment? What would you say was the most nerve-wracking one? Maybe you'll never admit you ever thought you were going to lose. But what was the point in the campaign you were most like, this is not where we want it to be at the moment. We got to really ramp up.
Well, I was nervous every single day. So
you're paid to be nervous as campaign manager, yes.
And you know, if you're not running from behind, you know, you're not doing the right things and you're not motivated enough. So I was very, very nervous. You know, the week that the poll that you all released came out, and then a week after that, or a few days after that, Boston Globe had another poll that showed, you know, that yours was 6 points, theirs was 8 points. You know, those were days where
and you put out yours, and you were still down 3 in yours.
We were down, and we knew from the day that Seth Magaziner announced he was going to run, we knew this was going to be a really hard race. We knew we were closing a name ID gap, and the reality is, you know, people have
just for the people at home. That's meaning people just didn't know Seth Magaziner like they knew Alan Fung at the beginning.
Exactly, and the reality is, a lot of us know our mayor, and we don't really know what the treasurer does. We don't know too much about the office, and Seth did an incredible job as treasurer, but many people didn't know much about even what that job is. So.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that is shocking when a down ballot candidate tries to go for the one of the top jobs is, and again, the polling bears this out, usually they're 30 people. A third of the people know who they are, a third of the people and like them, a third don't like them just because they're on the other team, and a third really know nothing about them. The other thing that compounds our problem as Democrats is our primary is so gosh darn late.
Yes. Yeah.
And when it's a competitive
and your candidate
party,
was in a very tough primary
right.
into September.
And so was now Congressman-elect Magaziner, that the day after that primary, you've got all the accrued negative campaigning that has been run against us. And give the Republicans credit for clearing the field for Alan Fung. No one laid a glove on him, although wisely the Magaziner campaign started talking about their real opponent, the Republican, before primary day. So you've got to recover from all that negative. You've got to rebuild the party. You've got to heal all the folks who are Democrats who are against you, who know the greater good is coming together as a team. And the one thing that we did, and all over the ballot, is come together as a team. Alan Fung wouldn't even campaign with Ashley Kalis. They did not have a team of approach. He was their best known and theoretically top vote generator, and he didn't have anything to do with the gubernatorial candidate. So we did a very good job, and this is not always true, but we did a very good job in the cycle as working as a Democratic team across the board. And the coordinated campaign, which Brix and Isaacs, who did a great job for Dan McKee, and Katie for Seth Magaziner kept an eye on, was very effective.
So I'll stick with you for a sec, Bob, because switch from your Democratic cheerleader hat to your trying to be a little bit of a neutral political analyst hat. We were talking about this in the show last week. I do wonder, and I'm not trying to depress our Republican viewers, but when I see in a year like this where we thought with inflation, with the strongest possible candidate, and as you said, the field cleared for Alan Fung, a tighter race than certainly Jim Langevin had been having, and to your credit, the Magaziner people still won it, and obviously the governor won by 20 points. All the down ballot candidates won fairly easily. Is there a path left for Republicans to win statewide and federally in Rhode Island? Again, I know it's not in your habit. You still think so?
No, absolutely.
How?
They could have done it in this cycle, but they all want the top job. If the Republican Party came to me and said, "Tell us what to do," I could have guaranteed them 2 statewide seats.
Which one?
They would have run Ashley Kalis for lieutenant governor and Alan Fung for general treasurer, and they would have taken those jobs.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah, with $5 million, with all due respect to Sabina, absolutely. Ashley Kalis, if she came to advice and still wanted to run for governor, I would have said, take $1 million of that $5 million, spell it on the down ballot race, run as a ticket, and even if you don't win anything, start building a party for the future. Those are ways they could have done that. Alan Fung was a credible statewide candidate. Not for that seat,
if Alan Fung's running for treasurer, we'll bring Katie back in a sec, but if he's running for treasurer, all of you Democrats would get nervous that that's actually competitive and come in for James Diosa, and the same thing happen that we see happens in the congressional race.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But there was no way you're going to let a congressional seat go. No way, national attention. And as much as we love the National Party, they were a little distracted trying to keep Congress, and they weren't going to dump a lot of money and resources to keep a treasurer's seat. When we've got the guardrails already in place in the Rhode Island General Assembly to stop real mischief from happening anywhere from any down ballot officer. But they don't listen to the advice, so I'm happy to give it because they won't listen to it.
Katie, the post-game analysis on the debates in the 2nd Congressional District, focusing on the general election primarily, was that Seth Magaziner had pretty good debates. He performed well on the debate stage and did better with each debate that happened. Take us in the room. What is debate prep like for those things?
Sure. Well, it really starts very big picture, right? Before you get into practicing any questions is, what do we want to accomplish here? What's the message of the campaign? And for us, that was very clear. Our message was that Seth Magaziner is the candidate who's fighting for working people, and Alan Fung is the candidate who's being funded by oil and gas money, big pharmaceutical money, the Congressional Leadership Fund, which Kevin McCarthy is funding. And so all of our answers needed to come back to that same frame, right? That this is a really clear contrast between what you're fighting for and who you care about and what you're going down there to do. And the benefit that we had is Seth Magaziner was a candidate who always knew why he was running. He always knew why it was important to keep the seat. He always knew why he was in public service in the first place, even before he decided to run for Congress. So then when you get in the room and you start practicing, it's making sure that you are taking the questions that are asked and making sure that you're using that opportunity to communicate to voters why you want to go there and why you want to
tell
fight
people
for them.
who played Alan Fung.
So David Cicilline did an incredible job playing Alan Fung in debate prep.
Did he get did he get the answers right pretty well?
He was great.
He channeled
very well prepared. He watched interviews he had done recently.
He was wasn't he a trial lawyer?
He's very good on
defense
his
attorney.
Defense attorney.
Very good on his feet.
Yeah.
And he knows sort of the Washington talking points that the Republicans, which Alan Fung was mostly mirroring. He was really running as a national Republican.
Let me ask, so we've talked a lot about Magaziner's because it was so tight, but I don't want to overlook the big victory for the guy you were helping the most, which is Dan McKee, Governor McKee. the question was, would he get the kind of victory that clearly moved him from, I won't say accidental governor, but like, became the governor midterm because Gina left, to he is the governor, he's the choice. Clearly that has happened. He won a 20-point victory.
It was a resounding.
It was. He got a political mandate from the voters here. What do you do when you're already the governor, yet in a way you just won for the first time, right? Got your first mandate. What do you think he does from here to capitalize on that the best he can?
I think one of the greatest frustrations that Governor McKee had in the course of the campaign is, and people don't necessarily know this, he's a policy wonk. He has a website with all his plans. The 2030 plan he's already put out on the website that he wants to work on education. He wants to work on economic development. He already has been working on those things. He inherited, go all the way back to Bruce Sundlun. Bruce Sundlun had all these great ideas for getting Rhode Island moving, and then the banking crisis was the thing he had to deal with on the first day, and we got way off track because of that. Dan McKee was going to run for governor anyway, became governor, obviously, when now Secretary of Commerce Raimondo went to Washington, and COVID was still raging. So you didn't get to do everything. Plus, you had no transition, and it's not a secret. They didn't have much of a relationship, so it's not like a handoff to your trusted lieutenant. It's a handoff to the lieutenant governor who constitutionally takes the job. So now, with the benefit of 20 months of actual experience, the real governing can begin, and the real transition is going on. He's got a lot of director positions to fill because it's incredibly difficult anyway to get folks to come into public service. But if the gig was uncertain at best on its length, so I think there's a lot of opportunity. And the best part is, and this almost never happens, an enormous surplus.
Yes.
An enormous surplus
projected.
that needs to be wisely managed. And already the folks are always afraid of us not having money or costing it. Well, that's too much money. But I'd rather have the too much. I'd rather have that.
I do think it got spent 3 times in my Twitter replies when I posted the story.
Right.
All right, we have to go to a break. Bob Walsh, Nee Zambrano, thanks so much for joining us. And again, congratulations on the victory. When we come back on Newsmakers, the political guru himself, Joe Fleming, breaks down Election Day. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside Ted Nesi, and we are joined by 12 News political analyst Joe Fleming. It's good to have you here. You couldn't be with us last week because you were under the weather.
Under the weather and no voice.
And it just doesn't feel like the end to election season without him putting a period at the end of the sentence. Right?
Exactly.
All right, so Joe, you were sitting off camera on set listening to our first half guests, and wondering if anything that they said stood out to you.
Well, I think a couple of things Bob Walsh said really stood out. The fact about the Republicans, they're not going to win by just going to the top and trying to win the top race and then, not work as a team. And that's what happened. There was no team there this year, the Republicans. Ashley Kalis, Alan Fung were basically running on their own. All the other Republicans were running on their own. And as a result, you're not going to win. The Republicans in Rhode Island have been behind for so long, they got to start building from the bottom up. And they've talked about that before. I mean, at one time, they did have the top spot. They had Don Kacheri, but they didn't gain any seats in the General Assembly. They were still down there. They got to build the farm team, the council, the school committee, state reps, state senators, put money into those races, get good candidates, get candidates that can raise $30,000 or $40,000 to run, candidates that can build an organization and get the grassroots out there and try to win a few of those seats. If you can do that, you can then start working your way up and building a stronger base. So Bob's right. You're not going to just walk in and grab the top spot. Rhode Island's just too Democratic. And now areas that in the past were more Republican are now starting to vote Democratic.
Well, isn't that an interesting joke? Because I was looking at it last week when I was writing my column, and places like East Greenwich, in the 2nd District, East Greenwich, North Kingstown, these are places that went for Don Kacheri and Lincoln Chafee in 06 by 60 plus, 70 plus % in some cases, have swung. They aren't even close. They're Democratic towns now. That's a relatively fast shift.
Exactly. You've seen that at Barrington also. I mean, we saw this time the Democratic areas, the vote was suppressed in the 1st Congressional District. Yet Dan McKee won big. Imagine if it wasn't suppressed.
You're talking about Providence, Pawtucket.
Central Falls, Woonsocket, North Providence.
And that really makes his win even more impressive, doesn't it?
If those numbers were up, Dan McKee would have won by 60-65% of the vote easily. So, I mean, the Republicans have to really do a lot of work. They talk about it every year. They're going to build from the bottom, but they never do. They have to go out there and actually do it.
Now, where my pushback, or at least where I can speak sympathetically to the Republicans, is the Rhode Island Republicans are not masters of their own destiny in some ways, because they're always going to be at the mercy of how the party is branded by their national leaders, like Donald Trump first and foremost, who just does not play well with a majority of voters in Rhode Island. And that's, well, I don't disagree that if you have council members, school committee members, they become your farm team to go to assembly races and then go statewide. We see the Democrats do that all the time. But if people are going into the booth in North Kingstown, in Barrington, wherever, and voting against a Republican school committee candidate because they're mad at Donald Trump, there's not a lot that school committee candidate would be pretty moderate, but the R after their name is really tough right now.
But you can change that. As Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local. If you're a good Republican at the local level, you can get the voters to come across to your view. But you got to get out there. You have to work at it. You can't just put your name out there, throw some signs up.
It's really hard to split the ballot, isn't it? I mean, just like you have such, strong Democratic candidates on the ballot, that's going to draw out those Democratic voters and the independents who lean a little bit to the left. So you're then suggesting that those people will vote for the Seth Magaziners at the top, but they'll then vote for the Republicans in the school committee?
If they build up a base at the ground level. If they don't build a strong base, they won't. But if they have good candidates who are active in the community, who know voters, who really have a lot of strong contacts, people will relate to them on the local level, not on the state and national level. They can make inroads.
What do you think of Bob Walsh's argument there, as Tim alluded to, that maybe there could have been opportunities in those down ballot races, particularly treasurer and lieutenant governor, with the right candidate? I mean,
you were a little dubious of that.
Well, I think, I see his point, and it is an interesting argument to make, but I just also, when I look again across the border, when someone like Sheriff Tom Hodgson couldn't hold on in the relatively moderate area like Bristol County, granted he was associated with Trump, so that's its own thing.
Wasn't this a really unusual midterm? I mean, just nationally, you had almost Donald Trump was sort of hanging over everything at this point.
Yeah, which is very unusual for a midterm. Usually it's all about the current president, and the last president looming so large is very unusual.
That was very unusual. I think it did have an effect on the statewide races in Rhode Island. There's no question about that. I think those down ballot races, I think the Republicans, again, they need candidates who are better known. They're candidates for treasurer, they're candidates for lieutenant governor. We're not household names. They weren't known at all. And it takes a lot of money just to get yourself known before you can start making more inroads.
I want to ask both of you actually a question from election night. I was at the Graduate. Most people know the Biltmore with the Democratic Party as they were watching the results come in. And, they had a big TV on, Channel 12's on it, and the two of you were you're on the air all the time. And you're standing at the desk and often hunched over looking at results. And you've been doing this for a long time. And to both of you, how was it calling races on election night, in 2022 general election, let's put the primary aside, compared to previous years?
Well, I'll go first only because it's interesting. So Joe, in the end, I would never call...
Because Channel 12 called the races first.
We called to the point that people... I saw on Twitter an hour after Joe and I had called the 2nd District, national people saying, hey, the networks haven't called this, but the trustworthy people in Rhode Island say this is over. And I was like, not only is it over, they've conceded, the victory speeches happened.
I'm interviewing Seth Magaziner.
He's on my TV with Tim, So, and that's because Joe, in particular, I am Joe's a student on this, truly. I'm not just being complimentary. Like, I've learned sort of how you watch and where you watch, waiting for the mail ballots, all the ways Joe can feel confident where it's going. I found it interesting because usually I'm the kind of hesitant one because I'm just nervous about, are we sure we
don't want to get it wrong?
Don't want to get it wrong. Not that Joe does, but Joe has been doing it longer. But this time I was starting to say to Joe, do we call a Congress race in the 8 o'clock hour? And I think both of us were... It took us a little while to process this. This was not going to be a one-point race.
No. We looked at the results as they were coming in. Seth Magaziner was down, but we're looking at Cranston was running fairly close. And then he was down by about 6,000 votes, but no mail ballots had come in yet. Yeah. And I remember turning to Ted and said, Ted, I think this race is over.
Yeah.
It looks like Magaziner...
With Alan Fong up, you turned to him and said, I think the race is over.
Because the mail ballots haven't come in. I've been tracking the mail ballots, and I know 65% of the mail ballots were registered Democrats. About half of the early voting was registered Democrats, so they're going to favor Magaziner. And I mean, we weren't calling the race at that time, but as soon as the mail ballots dropped in, Seth Magaziner went from being down 6,000 to up by 7,000 votes.
Do you guys still get butterflies when you make that call?
I'm sorry, you always have that little. I mean, Joe's told me some horror stories from the 90s where they got it, but it was a close run thing. I think what people, I learned this after, because I got questions from viewers after when they'd ask us about Joe and I, calling the races and saying we thought we knew where it was going. I don't know if people at home always know, Joe, that you get every night before the election a list, not just us, like it's you can be on the list of who has applied for a mail ballot, who has applied for early voting, and who has turned their ballot in.
And let's be clear, you don't know the results,
Doesn't
so people
say
at
who
home
they voted for.
Exactly.
You just know which human being, which registered voter has done one of those processes. Which means, as Katie Nee mentioned earlier, that's how she knew 60.
Because the campaigns look at it.
The campaigns look every night. Are our voters turning out? 60+% of the mail ballots had been Democratic registered Democrats, which meant we knew Alan Fung was not going to get a margin out of the mail ballots. He was going to lose votes there. So if he hadn't come out to that lead on the election day results that we get first, that's why Joe and I felt confident. I mean, heck, we called the governor's race, I think, by 8:45.
Oh, yeah, very early.
Because McKee was up by so much.
We have a minute left, Joe. So you touched on it. I asked Katie about it, Katie Nee Zambrano, in the first half. But, Alan Fung, he won Cranston, but not by much. What do you make of it?
Well, in 2014, I think he won it by about 7,000 votes. 2018, 4,000. This year it was 1,000. Could be a couple of things. It could be the Democrats in Cranston coming home. We said all along if Seth Magaziner was going to win, he had to bring the Democrats back home. Looks like he did. The other thing could be the problems financially Cranston's having right now. They've had a lot of financial problems. Taxes have gone up. People may be blaming that on Alan Fung because this all happened right after he left as being mayor. That may have had an impact on it. The abortion issue could have had an impact on it. There's a lot of factors. Nobody knows the exact factor. But I think part of it was the financial factors in the city of Cranston.
As you said, all politics is local, and the Bud Log pool didn't open, and that could have weighed on people.
Exactly.
Well, I feel much better now. Joe Fleming, thanks so much for joining us on the program. If you missed any of it, it's on WPRI.com. For Ted Nesi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.